Greetings, webheads, and welcome to episode 8 of Witty Banter, yet another Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast. I'm Patrick.
Alex.
David.
Vincent Vega.
That got weird in a hurry. We are here to help you get better at and have more fun with your Crisis Protocol. So, gentlemen, what do we got working in the labs? What have you guys been thinking about or playing?
I've been playing Avengers and Cabal.
I like your Cabal thing.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's Skull 3 with Thanos, because Death Decree is really good, and Malekith for lower threat level.
So you're saying that you have a list that has a whole bunch of big kaijus that make other people feel bad?
Yep, and it's got Ultron too.
Perfectly on brand.
Yep.
Give
it to me.
How about you, Alex?
I'm getting sick of playing X-Force, but I'm playing them. And looking into Spider Foes, because, you know, they're new and everybody wants to play them. But I was playing Foes before they were good, so deal with it.
David?
I've been playing Shield Thanos, because it's good. Thanos is good. And I've been playing Convo with MODOK 2 and Ultron, which is also really freaking good.
And I have been trying to make Mass Transit work with Nightcrawler and Professor X and Wong, and not convinced it works yet, but it's fun. So that's that.
Yeah, I mean, jamming a Sentinel Prime at you on round 1 is interesting.
It feels like if you can bring Hulk past the midline unactivated on turn 1, that there's something to work with there.
Yeah.
So we are still in the midst of giveaway season. JP had done a commission for our last raffle winner, Tom, who chose a Wolverine, and he did him in an X-Force costume. JP, do you want to talk a little bit about how the model went and how you did it?
I didn't know what the X-Force costume looked like, so I had to look it up, and I noticed it didn't have any of the stripes on the shoulders or the ribs, so I thought that was going to be an issue. If I painted the stripes, it wouldn't look like the X-Force costume, and if I didn't paint the stripes, you could see the stripes still, so I ended up like scraping out the stripes and trying to fill it with some sprue goo and file and stuff, and it ended up being pretty good. And then he painted it pretty nice. We'll have some pics on social. Yeah, we've got those. We'll have those up and ready for you to look at. They do look. It looks pretty good. And Tom put it on the table tonight, didn't he? Did he? I'm not sure. I don't know if he did. I know he had it. He had it on a tray. It ended up taking about 12 hours, I want to say. No, it's not bad. So we have our current giveaway, which is Gwenom and Scarlet Spider, which we were trying to figure out a cute name for. Got to Gwen Ben, which we decided wasn't going to work. But that's going to be
partial Benom.
Benom? Yeah, maybe. That's better than Gwen Ben.
Yeah, I like Benom.
So that's going to be given away at our next episode. So let's just review real quick. How do you get an entry for the giveaway?
Join the Patreon. That's one step for sure.
Sell your firstborn son.
And then leave a review.
Well, you got the important part. The firstborn son thing, I'm not really sure what we would do with that. But we will give you an entry for a rating and review that you send us a screenshot with. And they stack. So if you can get one entry for being a $1 patron, you can get 2 entries as a $5 patron, and you can get another entry for sending us a rating and a review. So you have a chance for 3 entries that will get you in to win Benom. I guess that's what we're going with. Also, we've got our big event that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. Alex, you want to tell us about it?
Sure. It's Bug Eater. This is our third year here at Bug Eater. No, it's fourth year.
It's fourth
It's our
year. That's
fourth
fourth
year.
year.
Yep, because I
Fourth
played in 2 and I'm running. This is the second one I'm running.
Yeah.
Fourth year with MCP at Bug Eater.
Time flies when you're having COVID.
Yeah.
It really does.
It totally does.
We got three events. There are like three events going on. We've got the team tournament on Friday. We've got Contest of Champions on Saturday, and a What If on Sunday. $60 for the full weekend, or $25 for each day. Team tournament is what's the special word for it?
Is it Singleton?
Singleton, that's what it is.
Highlander.
Or Highlander.
Yeah, Highlander. However you want to.
There can be only one.
There's one of everything.
Only one.
And then Contest of Champions, just like any other normal event. If we have enough players, we'll cut the top 8 for Sunday, and then What If, random fun stuff to happen. Don't take it too seriously, but don't bring garbage, I guess, however you want to look at it. And then we got chess clocks for all events, and no painting requirement. Everything that is released, and that includes FAQs or erratas on May 31st, will be in effect. I think that's all I got. Anything else you guys can remember?
Can you enter models for the Bug Eaters paint?
Oh, the Golden Gobbo. Yeah, we can enter them. I'll find out what they want us to put it in specifically, but I'm guessing it's going to be sci-fi single miniature. Come get cool trophies, free dice, free models.
Yeah.
And let's make this the best year. I'm really pushing to see if we can get to 32, if not more. And yeah, sign up. It's a good time. I've really enjoyed doing it. So.
And where would they go to find the signups?
I can never remember the specific website. I can never remember it.
We will have the link in the show notes, but we'll pull it up for you here in just a second.
Isn't it Bug Eater GT?
Something like that.
.com? No, you can't be that simple.
You can buy tickets at bugeatergames.com. We'll post all the links on our socials and the Longshank links as well for each event on all the socials.
Okay.
And I assume they can email. Who would they email? Would it be Tim? Or like how to, like if they wanted to get the Longshanks link, like once they buy tickets, could they email somebody to get the link to the Longshanks?
Yeah, they can email myself. I can get my information on there for important stuff like that.
Okay. And we'll have that information in the show notes. It'll also be on all our socials as well. Thanks, Alex. So now we're going to get back into our main topic, which is doing a deep dive on Crisis. Talking about each particular one, things you want to think about, strengths, weaknesses. Last episode, we talked about secures. This episode, we're moving in and talking about extracts. So should we start with just going extract by extract, or do you want to have more of a broader conversation about extracts as a whole?
I think we got to start with extracts as a whole, right? Like, I think that's the, like, so like with extracts, right? So one of the philosophies I've started to gain about extracts is like, so I think the secure kind of determines where you're going to fight at, and the extract, I think, has a lot more to do with the speed of the game. So like, because of the way the extracts are, because there is 1/6 extract, and then there's 3 that'll score 5. Oh, and then there are a bunch of 4s, and then like a couple 3s, and then researcher. Is that right?
Yeah, the extract that isn't an extract. Well, that'll be a separate
Well, I mean,
conversation.
we'll probably talk about that one last.
Yeah,
probably because
save the best for last.
Yeah, I love researcher. But yeah, so usually they'll determine the score of the game, right? And the speed. So generally, like, you know, obviously scoring teams are going to want to play the extracts with more, and then the attrition teams are going to want to try to play like researcher and virus or Montesi or whatever. I'm trying to think of. Should we talk about like when do you want to choose your extracts over your secures?
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense because that's a broader question. Do you see at competitive levels that secures are chosen more often, extracts are chosen more often, or is it kind of a mix?
Well, I think everybody's consensus is like usually like, oh, you just take your secures. But I think you really got to look at what your team composition was and what your opponent's composition is, right?
Why do you think the consensus is you take your secures?
I think because people like to control where fights are happening and to set up like situations where you can play on Gamma, where you're like, I want to play on E and I want to spam Dynamo.
Well, the other thing is if you're picking your secures and your opponent is running extracts that have something like, say, a midline grab, you have the first shot at that thing and you're playing on your secures. So them bringing like
spiders,
cubes or spiders, like they're at a disadvantage already because they're on your secures and you're breaking parity unless they can dive one of your backs. That's kind of how I think about it. And it kind of depends on how much overlap you have and how well you can play on their secures. Like if you have a very mobile team, you're not scared of playing on Ds, maybe you pick your extracts. But if your team isn't very good at pivoting or rotating on a D, then like you might stay away from that and just run your secures and try to go up on extracts on them.
Well, and the other thing to consider too is like if you're a scoring team and you're running, cubes, spiders, and like say paranoia, where you have a lot, like you have a center grab. Sometimes if you have priority, you want to take the shot at stealing that, right? Like if you have a center grab. I guess we should preface this by saying what's a center grab, right? Because some people may not know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So when we're talking about a center grab or a center steal, what exactly does that mean?
So that means something like Bill and Eyes on the Prize, where it's basically any kind of situation where a character can move up to the middle, grab the middle objective, and move back to safety, basically.
And Eyes on the Prize lets medium base characters that have 2 power be able to do that. So like Bill or Hella.
Yeah, Bill and Hella. And you can also do it with some leaderships like Beast can do it in X-Men with
First
Class, and there's a couple other leaderships, and you can do it with like Baron Zemo and Baron Zemo's card, but then you're burning 2 Tactics cards. So
Midnight Suns
can do it.
Plus, as long movers, Amazing Spider-Man and Angela can just do it naturally.
Yeah, they just do it naturally. And there's things like Cat and Spider, where you can like throw Cat out there and she can go grab it and then move away too.
But the basic idea is that you can send a character out, grab something in the middle, and not leave them out to get pummeled.
Yeah, because, I mean, with the speed of the game, there's a lot of characters that can, like, you can lay damage into somebody if they're on the middle, like on the midline on round 1. Right?
Yeah, you're kind of serving them up to the other team to get pounced.
And sometimes that's okay, right? Like, sometimes you might have a character like Ultron 2, where you just go, I'm going to walk him out there. If you put damage on him, cool. Like, I don't care. I have Age of Ultron, right? Or maybe it's something like Fury Grunts. I like to go grab the middle one with Fury Grunts because I don't care if you kill my Fury Grunts, and Fury's going to gain a power, and like you're going to potentially waste attacks. Like you might get up there and then not kill them, and then now they're alive, and you have to waste another action.
Well, with the Fury Grunts, you also get to put it where you want it to go. So it makes it even safer. Like there's almost no point to going after the Fury Grunts other than to get the point off of them, but then you just get it later. So it's not much of a bonus going after them.
So is there anything more we want to talk about with regards to extracts as a whole, or do we want to start kind of diving in and talking about each one individually?
Do we talk about threat?
I think that's almost
because threat's kind of like, I mean, I think the threat of a crisis is important, but it's kind of there's like a lot of situations where you may not get to choose the threat, so then it may not matter. But then I think you should always have a plan for the crises that you have.
Well, it seems to me that threat's almost a separate conversation. I mean, like how to figure out which threat is almost a different conversation than secures and extracts, because what the secure and the extract end up being is going to inform a lot of what you're going to think about with your threat.
With extract, I think you are looking at how many points are involved. I don't think you're really focusing too much on threat level for extracts. I can't think of one that I just would run. Maybe, I don't know. Senators is the one that I think of when because it's kind of, it turns the game into a kill box, but it's also a lot of points, so it's weird. Like, it's very scory, but it can also be, if all your people are dead, they can't pick anything up. And it's 19, which is kind of a popular one for a lot of like scenario teams want to go higher usually, and there are some attrition builds that want to go high too. So
Well, and Senators is a little restrictive based on the fact that you can only move once. Period.
well, yeah, it's the
So,
the kill box part
yeah.
of it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So other than that, like, I feel like you are just looking for whatever suits your game plan, and then maybe if all things are equal, you might consider a threat. But there's not a lot of redundancy with extracts. I mean, you could point to like maybe spiders and cubes, but they play kind of differently, even though they're identical setup and identical threat level.
Yeah, I think maybe we table a discussion of threat level, because I think I know we were just the new guy we were talking to was we were just having that conversation with him this afternoon as he's getting ready for Bug Eater in terms of how you pick your threat level. That seems like a whole separate puzzle to solve outside of your.
Yeah, I mean, you have to consider like what your opponent can bring,
Right.
what are they playing, what do you want to play,
Right.
The other thing I was gonna mention was you also should consider the extracts, like depending on variants of, like, maybe you want the extracts that a character can hold multiple of. Like, cubes is really good for Hulk because Hulk can hold a bunch of them.
So it's hammers.
Yeah, so it's hammers. But like, maybe spiders isn't as great because he can only hold one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of teams where you would want to run cubes with Hulk at this point in the game. I mean, Avengers can play it,
Defenders.
but I mean that's kind of besides the point. But yeah, I mean, Hulk is good on cubes. Like, if your opponent's bringing cubes, Hulk's pretty good at it, and hammers. Like, yeah.
Well, and I mean, I've been doing the thing with Thanos. We're all eyes on the prize and grab two hammers, and I've been doing it with Strange too.
I do it with Hulk.
Yeah, it's like putting hammers on those characters is really good, and it's really hard to get the hammers off of them. So like,
Don't do it if they have a rhino, though.
yes, don't do it if they're a rhino. Robbery is
It'll make you sad.
robbery.
Just take mission objective.
You
Yeah,
can't
but it
do
only
two.
you can't do
Yeah,
two.
that's true.
It only drops one, so you still get thrown.
Okay, so any other kind of broader thoughts about extracts as a whole before we dive into go extract by extract?
I think they've had more issues balancing extracts than secures. So there are fewer extracts than secures right now. How many extracts are in the game? Is it 9 or 10?
Just looking.
I think it's 10. 10 extracts, 12 secures.
Yep.
So there's 20% more secures. So like the extract pool is noticeably smaller. I mean, both pools are pretty small, but extracts are even more limited.
Well, and the two crises that got booted out of the game were both extracts.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that with the 2 extra. Well, there's three.
Well, there was
crises
one
that
that,
did get dropped.
because Terrigen
Terrigen Mist was
got
a secure. That one disappeared like randomly too.
I
There
think it was
no
just because
reason
it was
for
too
to go.
comparable to Fisk, right? Like they were almost the same crisis.
But they redid Fisk's.
Yeah, they redid
Yeah,
Fisk. Fisk
yeah, I
was
don't
completely
know.
different.
They
So,
could have.
Yeah, they killed 2 secure or 2 extracts for reasons, but not good reasons at the same time. They could have reworked them.
There was a
make
lot
it
of
work.
jank with meat or with Wakandan herbs.
With
There was-
both.
Yeah, but you
yes.
could like work them. You could figure something out with them.
Such a weird dynamic with herbs. But we'll not talk about crises that don't exist.
Right. Mainly, I think it was to buttress the idea that the extracts are harder to balance than the secures.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, there are 10. So maybe we start by, we just kind of take them by highest to lowest victory points per round.
Yeah.
So then we start with 6 in senators. So what are describe briefly how senators works.
So Senators is 19 threat. It's got 6 senators on the table. You're only allowed to perform 1 move action in your activation while you are holding a senator. So if you move to a senator and grab one, you can't use a move action. Now there are plenty of other things you can do, like places or advances. You just can't make another move action.
Which also includes charges or hit and runs.
Yes.
That
Anything
does
that
include
specifies
those. Yep.
an action.
And you can only hold 1 senator.
And you can only hold 1 senator.
So who likes this? Who likes this crisis? Who likes this extract? What kind of a team do you want to be playing senators on?
Well, the senators is interesting because there's a lot of. I mean, obviously, what we were talking about before with the kill box, right? Because all of the senators are in basically the middle of the table, not quite on the midline, but they're all grouped up, right? So, and a lot of characters can move. So, I think one of the things to think about with extracts is, do you have a character that can move to an extract and grab an extract and do something else? Like a medium mover can move to a senator and then attack something because they have a second action. So, like, thinking about the concept of what characters can do that. Like, commandos can move, they can grab the senator, and they can make an attack. So, like, thinking about those kinds of things. And so it could go either way, right? Like, you could play an attrition team where you want to try to kill everybody who picks up senators. Or you could play a scoring team where you just want to try to steal all of the senators on the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I played my X-Men, I really enjoyed playing senators with them because not too many of them had like action economy per se, but what they could do with first class and the few that did have like charges, it really helped them. And not a lot of people knew how to play it when they only have 1 move action. They can't grab and run away.
So does a team like Webs that has a lot of movement, is senators hard for them, or do they have ways around it?
So I was running senators in my Webs roster because one of the other things to think about with Webs or any I guess any of your rosters is that if you have 6 characters, you can hold all 6, so you can score 6. But if you only bring 4 characters, you cannot score more than 4. Like, no matter what happens. So you might end up with a situation where there's like senators on the ground that you just can't pick up. So the fact that Webs have a cheap, efficient core and they can just go really wide on you and run like 7 characters at 19 means that they can take a lot of objectives.
Well, and now with a lot of the recent releases they have a lot of models that place. That's huge.
Yeah,
for them. So that way they can get away way better.
Yeah, the game we played this evening, we were playing senators, and then you had 8 models on the table.
Yeah, I used Fury Grunts, and I was like, did I take 4 or 5? I took 4.
You had 4
But you dazed Widow.
Yeah, it went back. It kind of went back and forth. I think it actually stayed in parity for most of the game until the one turn where you daze like everybody.
Yeah, so it's just something to think about. And obviously there's like other tricks you can do. Like, I mean, in Convocation you can have Strange. Strange can play Astral Ring, which is the card that lets you place a token range 3, and you can measure attacks from that. So like Strange can place an Astral Ring out and hit almost any character in the middle of the table that picks up a senator.
Wait, maybe we found a place for Shadow King.
Yeah, or but the problem with him
That
is
would be the trash can.
yeah, I mean that takes an action. So now it's like maybe he makes one attack.
When the lid closes, it becomes the Shadow Zone.
Yeah, it's not good.
So there are teams that really try to engineer a setup on senators that games the opponent side of the extracts. So most notorious is the Brotherhood list with Juggernaut, Hulk, Mystique, and then whatever. I think it's, what is that? 9, 14, then you take a 3 and a 2. So Toad and whatever 3, Pyro or Blizzard, doesn't have to be affiliated. So you can kind of set up teams like that. I think that's the best one to do it with. I can't really, I mean, I suppose you could do it with.
I did it with Shield. Shield has a lot of characters that can that's the other thing to consider. If you're going to try to steal your opponent's side of senators, you need characters that can take it and have the minimal risk at getting completely blown up, right? So I did Taskmaster. I ran Taskmaster out at you and stole one of your side ones, and Taskmaster's you're disincentivized to attack Taskmaster, especially multiple times, right?
And going back to Brotherhood, Mystique specifically with Deception is really nice on Senators, or has a really good play. You want to kind of describe that a little bit?
I mean, it basically makes your opponent try to pick up the stuff on your side and stay within 2 of each other, but the first one who tries to dive a back senator is getting pulled in. So I guess technically they could take one on their side. Either way though, if they move up to take a senator, they're getting pulled. It's not as good these days because Deception is restricted, but if you're running a Mystique list and that's just your jam and it's not a Magneto list at all, you're running Mystique every game, it's probably worth taking Deception over a restricted card.
Well, the other thing that I do on that strategy about Deception is I'll use Fury and his grunts, right? So I'll have grunts go pick a far one up, and then Fury go pick the close one up, and they'll stay within 2 of each other, so that you can't be deceptioned, right?
Yeah, Fury is kind of a unique circumstance for that.
I think Fury is extremely good on senators.
You'll come to find throughout this entire episode, a lot of David's opinions will be Convocation and Shield related. Just a heads up.
I mean, that's
we love them, but that's the only 2 affiliations he plays. Some webs.
So the thing with Fury and Widow, right? Because they can place the objective, you can engineer a situation where you daze grunts and I place the senator back. Now you're kind of in a terrible position, because if you go out there to get that senator, you're stuck out there because you can't move away.
And you're talking about the Black Widow.
Yeah, the Black Widow. So being able to place an objective farther away from your opponent to make them have to commit move actions to get out there to get it is a problem. So what if people are thinking about putting senators in their list, what I'm hearing is that there's a whole bunch of different ways you can attack it. You just need to have a really specific plan for it. Is that fair?
I think you probably want to take at least 5 models.
So nothing where you're going tall.
Yeah. There's no way to...
Wasn't Wasn't Pat Dunford running some 19 with Thanos and Mystique
Yeah.
that was kind of tall? That wasn't.
No.
I thought it was like 4.
No, it would be Thanos. You're talking about his Guardians?
Yeah.
So it'd be Guardian or Star-Lord, Mystique, Thanos. That's 15.
Yeah.
And then he could go it was is it 4?
Mystique's 3.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's
Yeah,
14.
14. Yeah, I can't count. Okay, so
So-
yeah, and then he takes like Toad and no, he can't take Toad. Rocket and
Groot,
Groot.
maybe?
Yeah, that's what the team would be.
Yeah, I guess it still would be 5 wide.
Yeah,
Trying to
I don't
of-
think you go 4. It's just too. It's too weird.
it is a lot of risk. But I guess you could do it. I don't know. Like, if you think you can, like, kidnap somebody and, like, just daze them and place their senator farther away and force them to commit actions to get it, it's just a lot of risk because it can score a lot or it can score little.
So really, it sounds like either if you're thinking about taking it or if it gets pulled on you, you really you need to have a plan in place. Either if you're going to take it, you got to know exactly how you're going to attack it, and you've got to have something ready if somebody drops it on you.
Well, and that's the other thing to consider too with the choosing extracts over secures. Like, if you see that your opponent has senators and you don't have a good game plan for senators, maybe you go, okay, well, I'm going to take my secures because I don't want to land on senators.
Okay. Any more meat on the bone for senators before we move on?
I think the 6 points on the board is attractive. So obviously scenario teams are going to look at it. They're going to consider it because it's the highest scoring extract in the game. But you can also have teams that are kind of attrition based that can go wide and just try to daze models and go up on them in points, just being able to having their models drop, and you're just either like maintaining parity or gaining an advantage that way. But I think if you're looking at it, like I said, you want to be able to like put a certain number of models on the board to begin with.
Well, and the other thing to consider too is if your plan is to daze and like KO your opponent's models, that goes back to the placing. Like when you daze an opponent's model, maybe you place, like if you can't pick up the senator, you place it away so that they have to commit move actions to get it.
Okay. So that's the only 6 victory point extract we've got. So let's start in on the 5. So we'll start out with the newest crisis, Paranoia Pummels Populace. Let's get just a brief description of how Paranoia works.
It's
unique in the fact that it's got 4 extracts on the center line. And the first person who goes out and picks up one gets damaged, essentially. So it's
you take damage if you don't have a
if you don't have Fury, you take damage.
Yeah, you take damage if you don't have a character within 2 when you pick up the
right. So
Anyway.
So if you're not playing Shield,
yeah, you're probably gonna
Then
take damage on round
you're gonna
1.
take damage.
Yeah.
Unless
Unless you have like Bill can go pick up 1 and reduce and not.
I suppose,
But I don't think you do that.
I don't know if that gains you anything.
No, not really.
Because then he's gonna be sitting out there with no power, and then he's gonna get shot and not be able to reduce.
I mean, I think you
Same-
still eyes with him, right? Like that's just.
I mean, probably.
And he takes the damage and comes back.
Yeah.
So the other thing too is if you have a character within 2 during the cleanup, you also score extra VP.
Yeah, technically it can score 6 points, but not all for one person. So you could score
3 and 3.
3 and 3, or 2 and 4, or whatever. The other thing worth noting with this is the threat level. It is attractive for scenario teams, but the threat level is a little sketch with 16. I think Like webs really like it now because they've kind of stumbled on the 2/2s, the 4/3s and 2/2s. They can go 6 wide at 16 and just kind of like zerg the board.
Yeah.
But like 16 is usually it's like you'd prefer something higher, but webs don't care.
The other thing to consider is like healing factor characters are pretty good because they can go up there and pick it up and then just heal the damage off. It's like Lizard. Lizard, a perfect example of something. Somebody who can just like grab one and just sit there and be Lizard.
So is it fair to say that this is one of the faster scoring extracts?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think so. Paranoia is very snowbally. Like if you can get 3 of those and keep somebody within 2 and go up 5 and split your opponent up and they only gain 1, that's a huge gap.
Well, you'd only go up 4, right?
Well, you go up
Yeah,
4
3.
and then they would go up just the 1 if you could separate them.
Yeah.
They're whoever's holding.
It does score really quick though, and you don't need a lot of bodies.
No,
Like you can score with two characters what you normally could score with 3.
Yep.
So the need for, I mean, it's better to have more bodies usually if you're trying to play scenario, but you don't need them necessarily if you have stuff that's like tankier that can take more hits and just hold on to the extract.
Right, because you can only hold 1 disturbance. I still don't exactly know what a disturbance is, but you can only hold 1 of them.
It's so that Quicksilver can't steal it. Is that what?
Correct.
No, Quicksilver can because it's an
Okay.
asset.
Oh, okay.
Is it an asset?
It's an asset.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, he can't carry the civilians.
He can't steal civilians. But
Or
the one thing I
don't
forgot
they
that
do
we
the
were,
comics all the time, like fucking rush through and
Yeah.
pick somebody up, and
the other thing I
now he
Forgot
just wants sunglasses. What the fuck's that about?
It's nice to know that now I can flag it as explicit content.
But yes, the train of thought that I was trying to get on when we were talking about senators and I forgot was mission objective. So the objectives, the extracts that you can only hold 1 of, the mission objective is less valuable because you may end up in a situation where you have a character holding 1 and he can't hold another one if you mission objective to them. So it's always something to consider. And same with Paranoia. I think mission objective is much better on Paranoia because you're probably going to have somebody within 2 to try to get the extra VP.
Well, there's so few extracts that someone within 2 is probably most likely not holding 1 already.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, but
yeah.
Well, and if you can pick one of your characters that doesn't have it to move into place for the mission objective.
Mission objective is a good card.
Yeah.
If you're going to consider taking extracts that are high scoring and you're a scoring team, I think you probably consider mission objective most of the time. At least in your 10, not necessarily in 5, but
I hate to promote like cookie cutter builds, but I can't in good conscience not mention that I think you probably should just run mission objective in your 10, or at least can heavily consider it. Not only is it a good card, but like obviously Rhino is everywhere, and it completely shuts down the thing that makes Rhino good.
yes.
So
For those who
mission
don't
objective
know,
is amazing.
for those who don't know, if Rhino uses robbery and you mission objective and you don't drop an extract, then he doesn't get to throw you, which is a huge deal because there's no size restriction on that throw, and it's a medium, and it's any direction. Like, it's so good.
And he gets your extract.
And he gets your extract. So, like, the mission objective fixes both of those problems, right? He doesn't get your extract, and he doesn't get to throw you.
So if you're running a tall attrition team, this is a crisis you probably want to avoid putting in your list.
Just for the fact that it's a lot of points. It's going to score a lot faster than a lot of the attrition, quote unquote, attrition extracts that you can take. So there's not really a reason to take it if you're an attrition team. There's just better extracts to take.
Now, if you are an attrition team and you're going into a paranoia, like into that match, I think you need to probably try to have a plan maybe to like kidnap somebody or separate people so that they can't score.
Yeah.
Because they're all on they're all in the midline, right? So like there's only so many midline steals that you have. So at some point your opponent's going to have to expose somebody.
Yeah, the game hasn't gotten degenerate enough to really have 2 midline steals. I mean, Webs can do it if they have like Amazing Spider-Man and Bill with eyes or something like that, but
I think Inhumans can do it too.
Yeah, I suppose Inhumans could do it given enough time. Yeah, no, it doesn't even need time. Yeah, because they can pass. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But they would need like
you'd need like Bill with eyes, and then you'd need like somebody else that has like a.
I mean, you don't
like
need
a
Bill
place.
with eyes. You could do like Beast with eyes or Crystal with eyes.
Yeah.
Someone affiliated and then run like ASM or something.
Yeah.
Because you only get one eyes shot. So you'd need to run someone who can do it innately. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's only 4, so if you're running attrition, it's not like you have to have a certain type of attrition. You could have a tall attrition team on it, and it's perfectly fine. It's not. I don't think it's as scary as like Senators if you're really trying to jam a tall attrition team. It's gonna score pretty quick, but if you can keep them, if you can knock one out and go up 3-1 and then separate the other one, or even if you don't, like you're in good shape already. And if you're tall, you're probably tankier, so they might not be able to seize an extract back on that round. I don't hate it, and you also have a higher chance of landing on a lower threat.
Yeah.
Say like you land on like Gamma and what are we talking about?
Gamma Paranoia.
Sorry, it's like 3 a.m. My brain is unraveling. Yeah, Gamma Paranoia. They have 15 or 16, or like Fisk Paranoia. They have 16. Like they don't. It's gonna end
that's
up
an ugly game. Fisk Paranoia, because
Yeah.
like all of the skiers and the extras are on the midline.
Yeah.
That's an ugly game.
Yeah, that's a wall of death.
Yeah, that's literally a game of dodgeball. Like everybody run to the middle.
So, any other thoughts on Paranoia before we move on?
I gotta mention my boy Fury. He can grab 2 and prevent damage to himself by positioning himself close enough to the grunts.
Not that I want to promote Hellfire, but if you run up, grab one, take a damage, you activate leadership in a round, and you heal the damage. So it's not too bad for Hellfire either.
And obviously the healing factor guys.
And the healing factor, yeah.
Okay, so our next 5 VP is Spider Infected Invade Manhattan. How does that work?
There are 5 points, and during the power phase, each model with a spider, starting with player with priority, you roll a single die on a hit crit wild. The opponent gets to advance them short.
And this is another one of those secures where you can only, or extracts where you can only hold 1.
And it is an F shape, so it's got 2 on your side, and then 2 on your opponent's side, and then 1 in the middle.
So, what kind of teams are advantaged in Spider Infected? What kind of teams are disadvantaged?
Well, I think the big thing is that center steal becomes important on those 5s.
Yeah, so those are like 2 core box extracts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cubes and Spider Infected. So they're pretty old school. I don't really think they were planning on. I don't think they even had the thought of midline steal at the dawn of the game. They didn't have Angela in the game. They didn't have ASM in the game. Eyes on the Prize came out later. Like that wasn't even a thought in their head. So they haven't really released any that have a single mid extract after those. That definitely favors someone who can have prio and go out and grab the 1. As far as spiders, it definitely favors having lower threat characters, because if you have a spider on a high threat character and they're displaced by the spider and they don't have a way to recover that lost ground and they have to use an action, it really bites into your total actions for the turn, because if you're spending like 6, 7, I mean, most of the higher threat characters have ways to move outside of using a move action, but even so, depending on the board state, if you're able to move them out, they might still have to use an action, and that can really be detrimental to their game plan, because losing an action on a big model is very impactful.
Well, and that's something that a lot of people don't like. Some people don't consider, like, the fact that when you bring, like, most people don't really think about the fact that how many activations a character is going to have in a given game, because you're only going to get, I mean, between 3 and probably 6. That's like, it rarely goes over 6.
Unless you have a Thanos that punches somebody and KOs them by turn 2.
Well, but my point is that that losing an action on a higher threat model, when they're only probably going to get maybe 4 activations, it sucks. Like,
well, and if you have a higher threat model, and by definition that means you have fewer models, you have fewer activations, and so it's a higher percentage of your total activations or actions.
If you have a Magneto list, don't play Magneto and spiders.
Why not?
That's all. Because he's a short mover with no action economy.
That was probably one of my least favorite games ever, when I played spiders with Magneto. I mean, it was just a casual game, but God, that just felt so terrible, because I had to pick up the point with Magneto, and he just kept getting pushed away and did nothing the entire game.
And when he's holding a spider, he can't do the meteors.
Yeah,
or the what's it called?
Astrodam.
Yeah. So he's like double fucked.
Yeah, he is. He definitely does not like that.
So this is the first extract that we've come across that has an odd number of extracts. How does that change how you look at the game?
Well, being able to break parity, by parity we mean that, like, so parity is like when you look at the board state and you go, okay, I can score 3, you can score 3. That means you have parity. But with the odd number extracts, it's going to be like somebody's going to score 2 and somebody's going to score 3, right? So if you can break parity, you can sort of force your opponent to, like, have to commit to coming into you. Otherwise, you just stand there and score. Because if you maintain parity on the skier and you're 1 up on the extract, eventually you're just going to win.
So on the odd extracts, breaking parity is just what's going to happen. Like, you can't be even on it. If your opponent breaks it by taking the mid, you want to have a plan to take one of their backs, one of their back Fs, with either like a double medium move on a medium base or a double long move on a long moving whatever size base.
And Toad.
Or Toad, yeah. Toad works too. And you might go even more down the rabbit hole. If they have a guy who can steal one of your back Fs in response, you might want another one to steal their other back F. It's kind of like that game where you like keep putting your hand on top of the other person's hand. I don't know what that's called, but
well, the other thing
it can be like that sometimes when there's 2 scenario teams.
Is the characters that have, like, the midline steals, like ASM. So, like, ASM or Angela can move to the center, grab the center one, and position themselves on top of the other corner ones so that your opponent can't double move their medium base and go steal it. Because you have to be directly behind that objective to get there in 2 moves. So you can sort of body block with a character to prevent that from happening. I do that all the time to Travis. Travis gets really annoyed when I do that, because he'll put his lizard and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to center steal, and then block with lizard, and now lizard can't go do the thing.
That only works for the medium movers, though.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to block a long mover taking two long moves from like the center If you position a long mover at the center of the deployment, you can go to either of the back Fs, and it's very, very, very difficult to keep. You basically need some terrain and really good placement to keep them off of your back F.
Because they can get around to the back of the extract as opposed to just having to come straight at it and just barely make it.
Yeah, they've got extra to spare. And the other thing is if you're moving, this is more of like blocking for secures. It's not so much the extracts because, well, I guess in your case, if Bill center steals and then moves to the back. But like typically if someone's on in front of their back F, they've already picked up the extract, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's something like where Bill eyes on the prize and then move back. But blocking is more for blocking someone landing on your secure and contesting it.
Should we talk about the jank with Angela and To Me My X-Men and the storm hop?
Well, it's gone now.
No, it still works. It still works. You can like To Me My X-Men Beast in front of Angela. Angela hops and then she just long moves and grabs one and then runs back.
Yeah, you're right. She can't
because she has 2 powers.
Double steal.
She can't pick a side, right?
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about it, I guess. I don't know. You could do that one. I don't.
So, but yeah, basically, you just
very specific.
You use To Me My X-Men to like move Beast or somebody with a medium base to like an odd angle in front of Angela. Then you use the storm hop to place Angela one off of whoever you moved, and then you long move and then move back. And
long move to a back F.
To a back F and steal it.
And then steal it and then move back.
Yeah.
It takes, and Angela can do it while ASM cannot because she has 2 power. One to storm hop because Storm got kicked in the pussy, and
She really
2 for stealing the back one, and then your second action, run away like a little bitch because Angela is made out of toilet paper.
Well, and you can't do it with a small base long mover. So like, Kitty can't do it or something like that.
We were super excited when we saw Kitty leak.
I know.
Because Storm hadn't gotten kicked in the pussy yet.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, they can do it for 3 threat instead of 5. That's a big ass deal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then we were ourselves kicked in the pussies when we saw that Storm was kicked in the pussy. And I'm like, I'm not going to play X-Men.
I really hated when that nerf came out. I really hated it. I love my X-Men so much, and that nerf hurt so bad.
So let's if you're thinking about taking spiders, what should you be thinking about? And if you get spiders dropped on you, what kind of plan should you be looking at to address it?
I really feel it depends, obviously, on your affiliation. Like, one affiliation that really likes the spider pushes and like the spiders
advances.
themselves. Like, advances, yes. Foes. I think foes really like it because they have so many tricks and things that they can do because of the advances.
Well, and you can sinister trap that middle objective and make it really obnoxious to try to get it.
Yup. Because it stops the center steals. Because they just have to be within range 2 for the trap to trigger.
And it triggers before you can pick it up.
Yep. And because it triggers, as long as you do 1 damage, you push them short, and they have to move again to get in range.
It doesn't stop the center steal, but it doesn't let them move an optimal distance. They basically become Toad and take some damage because they can still move to the back and be with, assuming they're using Eyes on the Prize and not ASM or Angela. They can still move back to be range 2 behind the center and pick it up after they've been pushed.
But doesn't that like kill the whole point of it being a steal to save yourself? Not
necessarily. Like the difference between being 3 inches away and being 1 inch away is actually pretty significant.
No, I'm in agreement with you. But what I'm saying is like the steal, like the whole steal play is to move, grab it, and move back so that way you're safer. You're not quite as safe with the Sinister Traps play.
Yeah, not quite, but I would still say I don't want to put a number on it, but most things that can hit you when you're 1 inch behind cannot hit you when you're 3 inches behind. They have to have some crazy action economy or range to do that.
Well, the other thing that with spiders too is that you have to remember that the spiders is an advance, so you can move it through models, and if a character has flight, they can go over terrain.
Yeah,
so
that
is something to think about, right?
But that also makes a good point too, because technically you wouldn't be able to climb.
Yeah, you cannot climb. Yes. You have to be someone with flight.
If they're
or
size
wall
2,
crawler.
Yeah, the wall crawler would do it. But if they're size 2, you can't move over larger pieces of terrain.
Okay, so the last 5 victory point per round extract we've got is struggle for the cube continues. How does that work?
It's another 5-point extract, just like spiders. Same deployment type or setup type for those. And in the cleanup phase, you suffer a damage, but you get a power for each cube you are holding.
And this is one of the extracts where you can hold more than one at a time. So you could technically have all 5 cubes if some madmen want to do that.
And you also have to take damage to gain power. So if you have like some effect that reduces the damage to 0, you don't gain power for that.
Yeah, so Bill, for example, spending a power to reduce to 0, he would not gain a power.
Same with Juggernaut, those kind of characters.
So this is another fast scoring extract. Is that right? So who's advantaged and who's disadvantaged if cubes are in play?
It's probably faster than spiders, just for the simple fact you can stack them.
Yep.
Not a lot faster, but hypothetically faster. And who's advantaged? That would be Hellfire.
Webs. The problem with webs though is they tend to have
a small health pool.
They have small health pools, so they don't like to take the damage, but they do like the power. And you can do crazy shit with like Cat, where you go steal their back one and stand by them, and then you could maybe even steal another one if you have enough power to and then run away, right?
But Hellfire can be just as scory as webs, and then the leadership can heal back the damage that the cube gets. Is that what you were talking about with Hellfire?
Yeah, Hellfire, that's their best extract by far, and they're the best team to play it. So that shouldn't deter you from running it if you are playing a scenario team, but it's just something to think about. I mean, if you end up on cubes versus Hellfire, you are at a disadvantage just by the nature of how the healing and the damage from the cubes works. The damage from the cubes can be very repressive if you go up on the cubes against your opponent.
Easier said than done, but just kill him. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously the other thing with cubes too is that sometimes, I mean, obviously the extra power gen is good. The healing factor characters become really valuable because now they're taking damage to heal it, and they're gaining an additional power, so they're not losing that additional power that they would have lost.
So that would incentivize. What kind of scoring teams can easily add in healing teams, healing factor characters?
I mean, obviously X-Men, right? They have a lot of healing factor guys.
Yeah, I think X-Men, that's a scenario focused build that wants to. I mean, X-23 and Logan are just stupid good, so why wouldn't you run them? And they have healing factor too, so they can actually pick up 2 cubes and not lose any health, hypothetically. X-23 gets a little iffy. She's only 5 health and lower defenses, but I mean, if you can pick up 2 and just kind of run away and play them cagey, like they can just hold them forever, which is pretty good when you're just running those characters anyway.
Another character to shout is Hulk.
Mm.
Hulk likes multiple cubes because he likes taking the damage to gain extra dice, and it's a pain in the ass to get. And he's getting power, and it's just a pain in the ass to take them off of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he can grab 2 cubes easily. Like he can grab 2 cubes by just move grab. Can he grab 2 cubes like that, or does he have to have?
So he can move, grab your back F cube, and then move to center and grab that cube. If you have eyes on the prize, you can do that and be 2 inches or 3 inches back from the center, and use all your power to pick up 2 cubes and play eyes on the prize. It makes him a little safer. Alternatively, he can eyes on the prize. If your opponent has prio, steals the middle one. If he's set up on a flank, he can move, pick up a cube, move again, and eyes on the prize. Sorry, I got this sequence wrong. He can eyes on the prize, move, pick up your back cube, move again, be within 2 inches of their back F cube, pick up their back cube, and be at 0 power.
And he'll obviously gain power from. And it's still, I mean, you have to deal with a Hulk with 2 cubes, right? Like that's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's the end of the 5 victory point per round.
Is there anything you can think about?
I guess I shouldn't.
Cubes?
Did we miss anything on cubes before we move on?
It's still got the same structure or layout.
It gets weird like Hammers does, where I guess Hammers so Hammers consolidate on characters, because when a character picks up a hammer, they become way more powerful. So if you have a character, we're talking about hammers, we haven't gotten there yet, but I guess I'm making a comparison. If you pick up a hammer, you target a character with another hammer, your offensive capability is increased. You have a better chance of killing them. You can take their hammer if you kill them, and then it just snowballs. You keep picking up more and more hammers. Cubes is kind of the opposite, where people start dying and you're picking up cubes, and then you die because you have 3 cubes on you, and then it's just a clusterfuck of like exploding people and cubes all over the floor.
The other thing to remember is the sequence of when you take damage in cubes, because they did fix that. It used to be that it happened in the power phase, and then you get days in the power phase, and you feel real bad because you didn't get to activate your model. So now you days in the cleanup, which is much better. Like, much better.
Well, amazingly enough, it's almost like we planned this. The next crisis that's up is Fear Grips World as Worthy Terrorized Citizens, otherwise known as Hammers. How does this one work?
So it's got 4 points. It's in the shape of a D. So you've got 1 on basically your back, and then 2 in the middle, and then 1 on your opposite side.
I thought the shape of the D was like a mushroom.
God damn it. God damn it.
We are getting our explicit content.
I guess it
almost
depends.
entirely for
It
you.
depends on if you're cut or uncut though too.
They're all mushroomy, right?
I don't know.
It's called a mushroom stamp for a reason.
Yeah, but it can be much more of a one-eyed snake if you're uncut.
Oh, this is clearly the content that our audience is coming here for. So anyway, we have 4 hammers that are on the ground in a diamond shape. And what happens when you pick up these said hammers?
You get to roll 1 extra dice on all of your attacks for each hammer that you have. And all your tactics cards. So you must, it's not, so people get this kind of confused. It's not you must spend like an additional. It's you must spend 1 and then you get the ability to play a tactics card.
Right. So if you have 2 hammers, it costs you 2 to play. It costs you an extra to play a tactics card. If you have 4 hammers, it still costs you an extra to pay a tactics card.
But you have to pay before you play the tactics card.
Think of it very similar to the root condition.
Yes.
Because root, you have to spend a power before you spend power to use a superpower.
And if it's a tactics card that's free, you still have to spend a power. So, like, if Mystique wants the deception, if she has a hammer, she still has to spend an additional.
And if it's a tactics card that multiple people can spend on, and those people, more than one of those people have a hammer, you have to spend additional power for each person with a hammer.
Yes.
So, like a Siege of Darkness, Wakanda Forever, Avengers Assemble.
So this one's 4 instead of 5, and it's in a diamond shape. So you've got 2 of the 4 that are really close to your deployment zone. So what kind of teams does hammers favor? What kind of teams would not want to see hammers? Or what?
So now we're getting into an interesting territory because it only scores 4. So attrition teams like it because you're throwing more dice and it only scores 4. So, like, that's fine. And you can do, I mean, there's like so many interesting plays. I mean, obviously the center steals are good. The problem with the center steals with hammers is that if you don't have priority and you camp somebody on one side to center steal, if your opponent steals that one, then they're kind of sort of just sitting out there. So you kind of got to be cognizant if you don't have priority on how to center steal.
Yeah, you don't bring eyes on the prize if you don't have prio.
Yeah, I don't think you do it.
It just might not work, and then you're down a tactics card. And the other thing is, I wouldn't say it's just 4 points, because 4 points is 4 points. It still can score, and it stacks. So I feel like though the stacking extracts have more of a potential to score just in general. It doesn't always work like that, but the fact that you can hold multiple on one character makes it so that there's more opportunities to pick up extracts and essentially score points by the end of the round.
Yeah, you don't get in situations where you're holding one and you can't pick up another one.
Is hammers and extracts specifically that you'd want to think about using the other part of mission objective where you can hand off your extracts to another character?
I would say no, but that's a good point. Like Kingpin, his leadership, you can ferry around hammers. And that's that could be legit. I don't think Kingpin loves hammers, but it's definitely something that he can do, and it's a unique way to play hammers.
Well, and it's just a nice backup to have too, so that way you're not like doomed to need hammer or mission objective on top of the extra power it's going to cost to do it. Kingpin just innately has it built in with his leadership.
Well, and the other thing too, there's also the characters who can do crazy tricks, like I've been doing with Thanos, where Thanos eyes on the prize, he goes up, grabs a hammer, walks back to your back hammer, and now he has 2 hammers, right? And like Thanos can just do that, and same with Strange. Strange can do it too. It takes a character with a lot of power. I guess you could do it in Inhumans with Bill.
You can do it with Red Skull too.
Yeah, you can do it with Red Skull too.
You can do it with Inhumans with Bill. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
or Hela. Hammers is kind of interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like the Senators.
Yeah,
right.
Some attrition teams want it, and some
some attrition teams don't want to play hammers because they don't want to introduce more damage to the game and give their opponent an edge because they feel like their attrition is already good enough to just kind of kill their opponent. And some so if you can start venom blasting people who are holding multiple hammers,
yeah, it's good.
You can have a huge fucking swing.
Yeah,
it can be game winning.
Yeah. Well, and the tricks. I mean, I've been doing Thanos and Shield, right? And so with Thanos and Shield, if he goes and grabs 2 hammers, and if he grabs 2 hammers, comes back to his back point, the next round, if he has initiative, he can shield mobile up, and now he's 2 hammers. Thanos with 2 hammers is fucking scary. The same with Hulk with 2 hammers. These characters that throw large dice pools or have reroll advantage or stuff, when they get hammers, man, they can get Zemo can go fucking nuts with hammers, right? And the other thing to consider is the characters that have out of activation attacks, like got your backs, and like Fury and Grunts love hammers, like because the Grunts can like if the Grunts have a hammer or two, it's like they attack twice for 6 dice with a reroll. Then Fury attacks, then they attack again, then Fury attacks and they attack again, and you're just like stacking damage on people.
So going back to what you said about Zemo, yeah, he can do a lot of damage for sure. But kind of going back to what I was saying about the hammers snowballing, if you can get hammers on a big character that doesn't die easily,
yeah,
and he just fucked people up and takes the hammers, like it's very hard. It's like a super snowball. Say like a Thanos or a Hulk or something. Like getting those guys 2 hammers on round 1 is just a nightmare, unless they have Rhino. So.
Hammers is also really good for characters who have either a rapid fire or a beam because you get that extra die or dice on each time you roll it.
I love Dynamo with hammers. It feels so good. So good.
Dynamo does feel really good with hammers.
I miss Bucky having hammers.
Shield Bucky with hammers is still okay. It's not amazing. I mean, you could still sit rep and grab a hammer and be able to attack.
It's not what it used to be.
It's definitely not what it used to be.
Okay, so anything else in terms of what people want to think about either considering bringing hammers or playing against hammers? Hammers is one of those extracts. It's sort of like, I don't really know what else to do, so fuck it, I'll take hammers.
Well, and sometimes, like, if you're a scoring team and your opponent brings hammers, and so one of the strategies you can do is you can have somebody go get a hammer, and then, because if you're playing, like, webs, you're going to be playing on your secures, right? So your secures are naturally going to have more points. So, or they're going to be spread out. So you could like go grab a hammer, and then as the game goes on, you sneak one of your characters over to the other side. So now it's like you consolidate that your hammer's over here, and your opponent has to like decide: do I want to try to go get these hammers, or do I want to score the points that I'm standing on and still lose? Right?
Yeah, you put them in a no win situation, kind of. If you can break parity, but it's hard to do. That it's interesting, like hammers. It's very, very hard to break parity on that because it's an even amount of extracts, and the one that they would want to steal is all the way back by your deployment, basically. So they either have to have someone who's very long moving and can take some punishment, or they have to have some crazy tricks, which very few can do. I think like Thanos can do it, and
because ASM can like grab a hammer and then run closer towards your side, right?
No, I'm talking about like you have prio, you moved up and grabbed your hammer. We're gonna assume that you're not playing shield, as the general player, and you can't just like double grab 2 mid hammers and Fury.
But it's David. That's not possible.
Yeah.
I don't really do that play. I don't really like having Fury hold a hammer, but that's a whole discussion of.
That's a whole different discussion. Plus, you're splitting them up, so you're not gaining the power from the thing.
And Fury doesn't really want to hold a hammer per se because it makes I cost more. That's the other thing to think about. So if you have tactics cards that are either expensive or multiple characters want to use, like maybe you consider either not bringing those tactics cards or trying to play around having people with hammers.
Well, and that card particularly because it recycles. So it's not like you're going to be using it just once.
Yeah, exactly.
So going back to my point about hammers being hard to break parity on, say you have prio, you move up, grab your side hammer. I'm going to move up and grab my side hammer. Now your only options are to grab your back hammer, grab my back hammer, or not grab a hammer. But grabbing my back hammer is like very difficult. You need someone who's very fast and tanky, or someone who can get him like Wakanda. Wakanda can like Quicksilver do his superpower dash.
Yeah,
and then move up.
Wasn't Pat
move
Dunford doing the thing with Thanos where he'd like space to the back hammer, grab it, and then just double move and steal their hammer and sit on there with 2 hammers?
Yeah.
Because, again, Thanos with 2 hammers is fucking scary.
Yeah. He can even do it with eyes to, like, have extra distance.
Yeah.
You can also do it with ASM in Wakanda. You can give him 2 extra power and then move him double move them to the. No, you can't. Never mind. Yeah, you can. You can. Yeah. You double move and then web swing back.
Yeah. Yeah, because he'll have 3.
Yeah. So there's ways to do it, but it's tough, man.
It's risky, and
like
even if you
you're
do it with
parking a
like
guy
Thanos,
right in front of their whole team, like it's easy to get that hammer back.
Well,
and you get a daze out of it.
the other thing with Thanos too, right? Like if they have robbery, like if they have Rhino with robbery, you don't do that, right? Like it's like an immediate mistake. Because you're I mean, he's just gonna get robbery and lose both his hammers.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us. That's the last of the 4 victory points per round. Now we go.
No, we've got scrolls and
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Souls and alien ship.
and alien.
Yep.
No, alien
Alien
ship
Ship's 3.
3.
No, you're right.
No.
Yep. No, but we
Scrolls
did.
is the last one.
I did miss scrolls. So scrolls is the other 4. How does scrolls work?
It's a 20 threat. It's got 4 points. It's how would you describe the setup type for it? It's
So you've got 2 that are close to the center line, but they're not quite on the center line. They're like backed up towards your side, and then you've got 2 on the actual center line.
It's a squished diamond.
yeah,
It is a squish diamond.
yeah. Squish diamond, or I guess like it's cross like. That I guess you could kind of describe it that way too. When you pick it up, you roll your physical defense, and when you roll, if you do
don't
not
roll.
get a crit or a wild, your opponent can advance you.
That's a push.
Is it a push? Okay, it is a push.
It's
Yeah,
a push.
But it's just when you are picking it up. So once you've picked it up, nothing else happens.
Well, and like if you can steal it, that doesn't count as picking up because I believe it says it's the interact roll.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing to consider with like Thanos or anybody who can take reality is that the reality gem works on the scroll roll.
Mm-hmm.
So it counts that skull as a crit, which is pretty good. Pretty good.
And this is another extract. There's 4 of them, and you can only hold 1.
Yeah, that's right. And kind of going back to what David said about the Senators and wanting people who can move up with 1 move, grab it, and then be able to attack or something. You kind of want something like that for scrolls as well. You want to be able to get there with 1 move in case for your back one. You're not going to be able to do it on the side, but for your back one, you want to be able to get there in 1 move. In case you don't roll the crit or wild, you get pushed toward the opponent, you can always move back again.
So characters with medium base, medium movers, and long base, small movers.
Yep.
Can get
couldn't
it.
you do it with eyes on the side points? Because I mean, the range
can.
2 will be
Yeah,
helpful,
you could.
but
Yeah.
you're right. It's not as good, but it's still something.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another priority discussion too, right? Like I don't think you bring eyes if you don't have priority
Agreed.
because of where those objectives are.
Okay, so who likes scrolls and who doesn't like scrolls?
I think the mid-range teams can run. You're running scrolls in your Avengers, right?
Yeah, I have scrolls. Scrolls is like a super neutral extract. I don't think anyone hates or loves scrolls. Like,
I agree. I think it's pretty neutral. I don't think anybody really favors it, but nobody really hates it.
I would agree with David in that like the even extracts are probably more favored for the quote unquote mid range teams, but I just don't think that the climate of the game is really conducive to mid range right now necessarily. Maybe a little bit.
Because
a few affiliations can kind of do a mid range game, but it's just so hyper scory or killy.
I would say that I don't think Convocation really likes scrolls because of the physical defense.
Yeah,
Because they have a lot of characters that have low physical defense.
yeah.
And they're going to get pushed around. And they don't really like that. Because the other, I think, so if, the thing with attrition teams, right, is you can use that push to, like, bring stuff in, right? Like, they can make a mistake if they go out there and pick that objective up and now they get pushed closer. Now they just get, pummeled.
For sure.
Foes with the traps.
You actually don't have as many opportunities as you would think to do it.
Yeah.
It's usually like, okay, I picked my back one up, and either I get pushed or I don't, but then I just move. So you can't really take advantage of that. And then the side one, like, okay, maybe I got moved once, but I'm holding it now. So it's not going to happen again until one of us drops it. One of us drops one of ours, and I pick it up again. So it's actually like, when you're looking at it, you're like, ooh, I can do this or this or this. But in reality, the roll doesn't really have as much impact on the game as you would think.
Yeah, especially since it is Critter Wild and you do really physical. It's like if you're like 4 physical character, you're probably not getting pushed.
Yeah.
And even if it's only when you pick it up, so it's just it's just a one-off. Okay. Anything else on Skrulls before we move on?
It's kind of neutral. Yeah, I'm just going back to the whole neutral thing. There's not really much to go on about it. It's pretty straightforward, and nobody hates it or loves it.
I would say, though, don't go steal your opponent's back Skrull. That is a terrible idea.
The risk reward on that is pretty bad.
Yeah, because if you get pushed into your opponent's team, it's just bad.
I would say it's definitely worth noting that it's a fairly neutral extract, so it's one of the extracts that you would really look at and consider if you're trying to go very high threat. Because it's a 20 threat. That's the most you can squeeze into a game. So if you're really trying to focus to try to pack as many models or as much threat on the board as you can, you might consider Skrulls just to maximize that.
And the fact that it's pretty neutral, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
Between it being high threat and pretty neutral, like you could probably run it if you just wanted to run a lot of threat.
Okay, so now we can move on to the 3 victory points. First one up is Deadly Legacy Virus Cured. How does that work?
There are 3 points across the center of the board. It is 19 threat, and you can score 6 victory points on a model if the model carries all 3 at the end of the cleanup phase.
And then they go away.
And they get KO'd. And all the viruses go away, so it essentially turns the extract off at that point. And they took away the condition and healing from it.
Yes, they did. But it does cost an additional power for each one you are holding. So if you are holding 2, to pick up the 3rd one, it costs 3 power.
That's where I like Kingpin and Toad, because Kingpin can pass it, and Toad can take it from friendlies.
The other thing, too, is, like, Cat can steal it. So, like, if she has one, she can steal another one.
And it doesn't cost her an additional.
It does not cost her an additional.
And that might be something where you might want to use Mission Objective, too.
Yes, Mission Objective is great for Virus. The Gadget token on Shield Initiative is good.
So with it seems like with 6 victory points, it seems like that's a dragon you chase. Is that something legit that you want to plan around, or is it a trap?
So, in the last 2 games that I have played Virus, I have killed my MODOK and scored the 6. So, I mean, it can be done. It's not easy. I think it is something that if you can threaten to do it and try to force your opponent to, like, come up with the mind game of how to stop it, I mean, there's something there. But it's very... I don't think you go into it just trying to go, I'm going to try to score this 6 points.
And I guess that was the question I was going to ask, is it worth trying to have that as your plan?
No, it is definitely not. The fact that it is 3 means you're starting to favor the attrition teams because it's going to score slower.
Unless you're playing Colossus, then that is always the plan. When it scored 8, I loved it when I went from 8 to 16 in one turn. It was great.
Yeah. We should note that characters that like Ultron, he can KO himself with it, and he can bring himself back with Age of Ultron, right? Fuse power.
Yeah, good luck getting
them
having
all on,
power
and
in
that's
three.
the problem.
Like, you can't be picking any of them up. Or
Yes,
he's losing all
that's
the
the
power.
problem.
Like, I thought that the old virus was kind of.
It was still very hard.
It was very Rube Goldberg.
It still
and
is.
Now it's even worse because they lowered the payoff and they made it way harder because the old virus, you used to immediately KO your character when they came into possession of all three viruses. Now you have to wait till the cleanup phase. So that the dipshit holding all three of them has to survive through all the attacks that your opponent's going to be throwing at them. And that's just not very... Yeah, I don't think you plan on doing that. Like, you don't walk into a game and say, like, I'm going to take this because I'm going to score 6 points and score out. Virus is definitely, like David said, turned in... Well, I think it was always kind of an attrition-y thing, but it's definitely, like, one of the premier attrition extracts now.
Well, and you also have to... If you're going to try to do it, you have to keep your power management in mind, right? Like, so if a character only has 1, he's going to have to spend 2 power to pick up the second one and 3 power to pick up the third one. So he needs 5 power to pick it up. So, like, it's you have to, like, kind of think about it. Like, in our game, I had to, like, give a power from Wong so that MODOK had enough power to take both of them.
But that's if you're picking it up off the ground. Like, if you're stealing it from somebody or something like that, then you're not having to worry about that.
The other thing too is you don't score the VPs for holding it and get the VPs for blowing yourself up. That happens first.
So, JP, I want to go back to, you said it was one of the premier attrition extracts. Why?
Because it's one of the... So Researcher is the lowest scoring. Unless you push it to their back and then it's scores 3.
So
but
hard to do.
We'll just say it's 2 because nobody plays it like that. It's the single lowest scoring extract in the game, and then you have alien ships and virus. So
and Montesi.
Oh yeah, you're right, Montesi. But
it's the only one that has them on the center line.
Virus, yeah, like. So going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, where people pick their secures or extracts, usually people are still primarily picking their secures. So if you bring Montesi, they pick their secures, they get first swipe at mid, they take mid Montesi, and now your dick's in the wind. Whereas Virus, you got all 3 of them at the center. Okay, yeah, they get the first crack, but there's still 2 in the middle. Do they want to risk moving a guy up? Unless they have double extract steal, which they probably don't. You get to still punish them even when you don't have prio.
I guess explain why a slow scoring extract is good for an attrition team.
Well, because I know a lot of people are like, well, I just want to, like, kill models or whatever. Like, I don't think that is ever a valid strategy. I don't go into a game thinking I'm going to table my opponent. Like, it happens, but it doesn't happen as often as you would, like, try to think it would happen. Most of the time you're dazing and KOing characters to leverage gaining extra VP out of it. Right? Like, you're trying to, like, monitor the board state so that you're like, okay, I got to 14 points. Now I'm going to, like, try to daze a bunch of models or KO a bunch of models to take activations to take the VPs and score out and win.
So going back to Patrick's question, the fewer points on the board, the slower the game will be. It gives you more time to kill.
Yes.
If your team's set up to kill, you're doing the killing better than the team that's not set up to kill. If the other team doesn't have enough points on the board and they're a scory team, then you have an advantage as the killy team.
Yes, and if you are the scoring team, you're trying to stay alive, and so, like, you want to, you basically, like, if you're like Webs or Hellfire, you're putting a clock on the game. Like, you want to try to win the game on round 3 or 4, because if it starts going past that, you're going to start losing models, and it's going to be much harder to leverage your VP gain, right?
Right, because one of the things the attrition teams want to do is dazed and KO models, and dazed and KO models don't score victory points.
Yes, they do not score victory points.
Okay. Anything else on virus before we move on to what seems a very similar extract, which is the Montesi formula?
Just, I mean, like all the Rube Goldberg stuff with trying to force a score is just like, if you can score it, consider your options of like, do I want to score these 6 points? Do I want to KO this model? Is that a circumstance I can get into? Maybe it's better to just hold 2 of them and not KO your model, right? My game today against Travis, I ended up with a situation where he was scoring so quickly because he was playing Kingpin criminals that I was down by so much. I was like, okay, I gotta take these 2 off of Rhino, and I just gotta suck it up and kill MODOK because that's the only way I can stay in this game. Because I made it so that since they went away, since the viruses went away after MODOK was KO'd, that means that the Kingpin team doesn't have as many points on the board. Now, it essentially became 4 points on the board, so he couldn't score out on me. I could just maintain parity and beat him up. So that's always something to consider.
This question will be relevant for both this and the next one. Is the fact that there's an odd number of extracts change or influence how you think about it and you play the extract game?
How you play the extract team?
Or how you play the extract itself?
In other words, the fact that you're going to break parity with 3, is that as much of a factor that you want to be thinking about as when you're breaking parity with 5?
Not really, because you're still scoring. I mean, if you're scoring 1 and I'm scoring 2, the variance isn't as high.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between taking the 3s and 4s, if you lose prio, you could go down 2-1 in the 3s, or you can maintain parity in the 4s. But either way, your opponent's scoring 2 points, and if that's their goal, they're doing it either way. Whether it's like Hammer Scrolls or Ship's Virus, the difference is that if they want to take 2, they have to probably put at least one of them in danger to do it. And then that's where you capitalize on your attrition side.
Okay. Anything else on virus? Okay. Next extract. It's a 3 victory point. Is the Montesi formula found? How does that work?
I was like, should we do maybe we do alien ships before that, because
Yeah,
alien
let's
ships
do
is
that.
the same.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Is the same.
Same C.
C. It's the same C.
Okay. So
Uh,
how does alien ship crashes in downtown? How does that work?
well, it's 17 points, so it's 2 less than virus, which is kind of whatever. But it's really weird. I'm not sure how I feel about alien ships. I like the C, but I don't really like the effect of holding it. I think if it's during cleanup and you have 3 or more power, you have to roll. What is it?
You roll
Four
if you
dice?
have 4.
It's-
Yeah, 3 more power. You roll.
I think it's 3 dice.
I think it's 3 dice, and hit crit wilds. It does damage to you.
No, it's skull.
Is it skull?
I think it's skull crit. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I know it does damage to
Patrick,
you
help
and
us out.
everybody within 2.
I thought you were looking up the extract.
No, I got totally distracted by something else. I can look it up. Give me a second.
How are we getting distracted?
Because it's 3:40 in the morning. What was the question?
Alien ships, if you have 3 or more power, you roll 3 dice. For each skull or wild, you suffer 1 damage, and all characters within 2 suffer damage.
So I was close. It was wild skull, not crit skull. But it's very easy to get 3 power on a character, and it gets weird because you can you can think of it two ways. You can think of the extract team, if they run away with them and try to just castle somewhere, they might just shoot themselves in the foot by just randomly blowing up everybody around them. But the same can be said for you. It introduces just it's a level of chaos in the game that I just don't really like as a player who's trying to hedge with my skill and not just like randomly like nuking my entire team. Like cards like Mission Objective. If you're trying to keep your opponent from taking it, you want to be within range too. But then if you roll 2 or 3 successes on that and you just blow everybody up, you've completely
you can't mission objective. Yeah,
I mean, you've completely defeated the purpose of doing everything that you carefully planned and set up. It's just, I don't like it. It makes me nervous.
So I will say I do like it for some attrition teams, right? Because if you go and you take one of these alien ships, right, and I put a bunch of damage into you, I'm putting power on you. Now you're gonna have power that you're gonna have to roll on and take more damage, right? So you can sort of like stack. You're damaging them, they're gaining power, they're using the power is also damaging them, right? So it's one of those interesting.
And it's for each
Yeah.
skull and crit. So theoretically, if you roll like I would roll, you could take 3 damage
And do 3 to everybody around you. Which you can use offensively too. You can dive bomb somebody.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you can you use that to turn a 2-threat character into a bomb
Or a Hulk into a bomb.
But like, it's just like the level of chaos of this extract. Okay, I've got this great idea. I'm going to pick it up, and I've got power on me. And I'm just going to run into your team with this extract, and I do no damage.
Yeah.
And now you beat my ass and take my extract and laugh. Like, I just fucking hate it.
And then that would be the irony, because they would have enough power, pick up the core, and shoot themselves in the foot.
Now remember, Juggernaut can only reach one of the damage, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I think it all happens in one pack.
So it's not so bad on Juggernaut, right? Because then he's only taking 2, and you can like just ram him around and have him like in everybody's shit. Where you're like, if he blows up, I'm gonna do damage to you and me. I'm gonna take less than you.
So I am comfortably certain that this is the least taken extract in the game. And is that because it's so random that it's really hard to figure out when you would have an advantage? You might be advantage, you might be at disadvantage. It just depends on how the dice fall.
Well, the other thing to consider is it's 20 threat. A
No,
lot
it's
of
17.
or 17. Okay, which one's 20 threat?
Scrolls.
Scrolls is 20. Okay, yeah, I guess the 17 is not terrible.
17 is fine. I think it's probably a tie between
Alien Ships
Montesi.
used to be 20. That's why.
Yeah, it did. Montesi and Alien Ships is probably it's one of the two. Is probably the least taken extract. But like Montesi has its issues. Like Alien Ship, you do get them all across the board, and you can punish people, like we were talking about, for trying to steal more than one. I can't remember what your question was though, Patrick.
Well, mainly it's just this seems like it's a extract that almost never gets played. And is that because there really isn't a way to figure out how you can have an advantage on the extract?
Shout out to Fury. If Fury grunts have the alien ships on them, they don't generate power, so they don't take damage from it.
That's true. So going back to not wanting to encourage cookie cutting, if you're going like heavy attrition, like you're taking researcher and you're taking virus, and your only other options are probably alien ships, Montesi, and then maybe hammers or scrolls, maybe senators. Like you do have options, but you're probably, a lot of the attrition teams at this point are just like cutting it hard and going ships or researcher, virus, and then either ships or Montesi, just to get the bare minimum points on the board and go for the throat. Like they're not really messing around with anything else. So like it's either probably ships or Montesi, I think, for the hardcore attrition teams.
So basically, in that circumstance, you don't terribly care about, or you're not really playing much in terms of the extracts. You just want to keep the game slowed down so you can pound your opponent out of activations.
It's definitely a factor in the game that you have to be cognizant of, or it could just bite you in the ass. But yeah, you just take it for the points, and it's a symmetrical effect. It's not like David was saying, if they pick up the extract, you shoot and put some damage on them, they might just blow up in the cleanup phase because they took damage from you. So it can work to your advantage as an attrition team to do additional damage to the opposing team and speed up the rate at which they're dying. But it's just chaos.
Well, and shout out to Bill and other characters with like aggressive. So like if people are putting damage on you, you can like aggressive into their team and try to blow up into their team. It's not like something I would absolutely plan to do, but it is definitely, I mean, it is a thing you can do. And Bill can obviously reduce damage, so it's a thing you can do with Bill.
I do like that.
Would you want to think about either if you have a secure that's going to clump everybody in the middle? It seems to me like if you're taking ships with that, you're increasing the possibility of hurting your opponents and also yourself.
Total nuclear meltdown in the center.
And the other thing too is just like what we were saying with virus is that it's 3 points in the middle, so you're forcing your opponent to like commit to grabbing one and being in the middle, right?
Yeah, it's just not a game I really want to play. If it's like gamma ships, that just sounds terrible.
It does sound pretty terrible. Or
I'd
just
rather
chaos.
not. I'll still run ships in lists, but I really don't like it that much. It's kind of just the third best option, which at that point, like, virus is way better.
Yeah, virus is definitely way better.
Okay. Anything else about ships before we move back to Montesi? Okay.
The characters that can spend power randomly, or like on rerolls or whatever, so you can spend down to that limit.
Reactive stuff.
Yeah, so you can get down.
Make sure that you
and
don't
you don't
have the
blow
three.
up. Yeah, is pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. All right. Montesi formula found. How does that work?
It is an E setup with 3 points. It's 17 threats. It's 18 threats.
18.
They changed it to 18.
Yeah, it's 18.
And when you pick it up, one of your attacks can be a Mystic range 3 beam 6 dice. You do not get to add extra dice from crits.
And you can't modify.
And you cannot modify.
Yeah. You can't add extra dice, period.
Yeah. There's no extra dice whatsoever.
So like Stark Armory or any of these random cards that give you extra dice. Death Decree. You can't add it to the beam. And it does not generate power. It is a 0 cost attack though. So you could do it with like Panther could do it with like Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, Wakanda Forever. Surprise Webhead you could do it with.
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, you can do any of those attack cards.
Siege of Darkness. I miss the energy beam one, to be honest though. I love Juggernaut with that thing.
Busted.
Rolling 8 dice. Oh yeah.
Oh, it was so busted with the Fury Grunts.
And so this is the one, the E shape it's right down the middle. So you've got one in the center, one close to you, and one close to your opponent. How does that change how you approach thinking about playing it?
I mean, the center steel becomes important, right? Because that's one of the... So, Montesi is one of those ones that's like, I don't really like it a whole lot for some attrition teams, because if they don't have a way to take the Montesi off of that person who center steals, then your opponent's breaking parity, and you're forced to go into them, which may not be what you want to do, especially if you're like somebody like Shield. Like if you're a shooty attrition team where you don't want to spend move actions to go into them, you want to shoot them. Well, if they just take the Montesi and run away with it, then you're like losing.
Yeah, losing Prio on Montesi is a lot more detrimental than losing it on Virus or Ships. I will second or third or whatever the fond memories of the old Montesi. That you could actually build a team to take advantage of the Montesi beam.
Oh man,
that
Black
old beam
Panther,
is fucking ridiculous.
Black Panther was ridiculous.
Oh my god! I'm gonna pay 2 and beam your team, and I'm gonna get rerolls on all them beams.
Yeah, so good.
But yeah, now it's a shadow of its former self, and I feel like a lot of people when they play Montesi, they forget it even has a beam on it. It's just an extract.
I guess we could talk about the characters that would use, like, obviously the grunts, Furious Grunts, right? They get to beam the ninjas, right? Like the advantage with Furious Grunts is if you damage with that beam, Fury's gaining a power every time. So like if you get 3 characters and they damage, then Fury's gaining 3 power. So like that's pretty good. The other characters, Nightcrawler can like teleport off of every character he attacks with that beam, so he could build up a spender pretty ridiculously.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah, it can get stupid, especially since he can place up and line up a good beam. That's the other thing to consider if you're like having characters that want to use the beam for their advantage, is if they've got like a place or any kind of movement or charge or something where they can line up beams. It's pretty good.
So if Montesi has such an advantage for the player with priority, if you win priority, is it worth focusing on trying to get the best chance you have to get Montesi?
Well, I mean, that goes to the like deciding if you're a scoring or attrition team, right? Like if you're an attrition team and you're playing it, maybe you want to pick extracts with Prio so that you have a shot to get the middle one and force your opponent to come into you.
Well, it depends on if you're going against another attrition team. If you're going into another attrition team, it probably doesn't really matter. It's going to be low scoring no matter what, and you're just going to beat the shit out of each other. If you're going into a scenario team and they have
steals.
Say they have 2 Fs.
Yeah,
you're probably fine with that because you can mid steal that. And if you want to be on your secures, it just kind of depends. I don't think it's like super necessary to have Prio on the Montesi, but it definitely helps. It's still going to be a low scoring game, a low scoring extract regardless. But I don't think you're necessarily like gunning to take your extracts just to get the middle one. Like the beam itself isn't really worth sacrificing a game plan to just try to grab the middle one. I mean, if you can, that's great, but I wouldn't focus just on trying to grab the middle one as a reason to pick extracts.
The other thing too, I was thinking about characters. Benom and Gwenom can attack back with the Montesi beam and hit multiple characters. That is something to consider. I mean, their attacks are obviously better in general, but if you can hit 3 characters with a clap back from Benom, that's good.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, anything else about Montesi? Before we move on to the extract that is...
I don't think there's nothing I can think of. I mean, there's probably some other random cute interactions with characters that I can't think of off the top of my head.
Well, it sounds like the change in the extract sort of took on
the fact that you can't modify it makes it less appealing for the characters that have like lots of dice modification.
I think Montesi is the only E extract, right? Yeah,
it's the only E extract.
So it kind of
real extract, yeah.
So it kind of goes back to what I was saying about hammers and scrolls, where like you can't really steal the back one very easily because it's in the same spot as a D. So it's hard to break parity back in your favor if they steal mid, because stealing their back one is just exceedingly difficult.
Okay. Anything else on Montesi before we move on to our last extract? All right. The extract that isn't an extract. Research station attacked. How does Researcher work?
It is an E setup, just like Montesi, where it's straight up the middle, one close to you, one close to your opponent, and the one in the middle. But it's not the same because you don't actually pick up anything. The points closer to the deployment edges, what are they called? They're just like
They're
Research stations.
the actual research stations. Okay, so they're research stations that you don't interact with, and the middle point is the researcher. And during the cleanup phase, whoever controls the researcher can place it within 2 of its current position. You score 2 points if you hold the researcher, and if you have the researcher on the opponent's station, you get an extra victory.
within 1. Is it within 1?
Within 1.
Yeah, it's within 1.
Yeah, so conceptually, it's you've got a researcher and you're trying to get them to the evac point to rescue them, and the evac point that you score for is on your opponent's side of the board.
So you got to shove it towards your opponent to try to score the bonus point, which nobody does.
No.
Because why would you do that?
Okay, so let's talk about that. Why? So you've got these evac points that you can score one, but how does researcher in the wild actually get played?
So most people will try to, at least, well, so when I play researcher, what I try to do is I try to shove the researcher to either into my team so that my opponent has to come towards me, or into a area that's just like inopportune for my opponent to score it. And the other thing I like to do is, you just pull it towards a secure that you are already holding, so that way you can basically double down and score the researcher and the secure.
Yeah, I very rarely move it towards the actual research station. I think I've done it twice, but that was because if I got 1 more point, I'd win the game.
Yeah.
So research is basically the ideal extract for attrition teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, it scores slow, and your opponent can't, as Vince told me at LVO, your opponent can't run away with it. So, like, they can't grab it and run away with it, and it turns off all of the characters that have, like, robbery. It turns off cat steal, like
Venom Blast.
the Venom Blast, like all of these cute interactions that characters have with extracts don't really work. Like Toad is useless on Researcher because he can't grab it. He can't it doesn't matter if he interacts with it, whatever.
Well, and then you're also getting the double bonus that either they're leaving you scoring 2 victory points a game, or they're coming to you, which is what you want them to do as an attrition team anyway, so you can punch them in the face.
The other thing about Researcher is all or nothing. If I score the 2 victory points, you don't get any points.
So going back to Toad, he is the only 2 threat that can push, which is relevant on Researcher, but he's not great on it.
No.
It turns off part of his kit, but like a wild push on a 2 threat is pretty good.
It's good.
I mean, I wouldn't take Toad because of Researcher, but if you needed a 2 threat, Toad's the best one. In theory, if you're fighting over the Researcher. Researcher is kind of like one of those shitty side quests in like an MMO where you have to like assist the dumbass to like get to their destination. But it's fucked up because instead of taking them to like the shop or the healer or whatever, you fucking just push their ass into a well.
Yeah.
Like they're not going where
You're like, let's make this worse for you.
they're not going where the game designer intended.
Yeah. We're just gonna push this fucking thing laterally. I remember watching DeLuca and Vince's game at LVO, and they literally had they were playing Scoundrels and Researcher, and they had pushed the Researcher onto the side fucking Scoundrel, and they literally had their entire team all huddled around the fucking Researcher and this Scoundrel, and there was a point where Vince wanted to drop his grunts down. The Fury. Okay, so I guess I should shout out Fury grunts. So Fury grunts.
Do you like Shield, David?
Yeah, yes,
Do you like
I do.
Do you like Fury?
But yes, so Fury, the Fury grunts actually contest the Researcher, and they count as healthy. So you can get into a situation where Fury can just drop grunts on the Researcher and score it, and he can even walk on it and score it himself, and that counts as 2 bucks. So there's a lot to that. So it's really good Crisis for Shield for sure.
Sneak preview, we're going to next episode introduce the first Witty Banter drinking game for references to Fury's grunts. So we figure that most everybody would be unconscious about 1 hour 10 in.
So what I was saying about Vince and DeLuca's game at LVO, there was a situation where they were all huddled around this fucking thing, and
What thing?
around the Researcher and
The center? The first round?
No, it was in the corner. It was at the end of the game, and there was a situation where Vince wanted to drop his grunts and be able to get in range of the Researcher, but because of everybody being around it, he couldn't really fit him. He had to have Omnis come over there and literally move every model away, and then fit the grunts in there and try to put them all back to see it. And it was the last round, and it was super sweaty because Vince needed to drop grunts, Fury Spender, move on to the objective with the grunts shoot, and I think they needed to blow up Magneto. But it was crazy. So
this is I have to move how many models?
Yeah, he had to move all of them.
His hands are quivering.
Yeah. It was definitely.
I don't think Omnis liked Shield after that game.
Yeah, it was so, and the score was super close too. It was crazy, but yeah, that's one of the strategies, right? You just push it towards your score both of them.
Yeah, so Researcher's interesting because we think of it like it's not an extract; it's just more of a secure. But also, when you compare it to an extract, any other extract, if you have parity with your opponent, you're scoring equally. If you're 2 and 2 or whatever, you're both raising your scores. If you have parity on Researcher, nobody's scoring shit,
and nobody moves it.
Yeah, it's a dead turn, and it gives you so much more time to kill their ass, and that's why all the secure players hate it. And I collect their tears in a vial, and I'm filling it up very quickly.
Well, and the other thing about Researcher too is a lot of the kaijus in the game can bully the Researcher. Thanos can bully the Researcher. Hulk. And by bully, I mean basically use their kit to either just stomp models that are standing on it or throw them away, and basically make it so Hulk or Thanos is the only one scoring it.
Okay, so Researcher is the primo extract for attrition teams. So say you're rolling with Webs or a Scory Hellfire team, and Researcher comes out. Apart from crying, what do you do?
You
Cry more.
if you're playing Webs, you just say good game and walk away from the table.
It's really bad for Hellfire too.
It's
because they're running Ds.
Yeah,
they're running 2 Ds, so they have to jam mid and not sit on their Ds, and then get displaced off the Researcher so that they can leadership for what?
Yeah. Well, and the other
bad.
thing too with that is the other thing that attrition teams like about it is they can go tall because it doesn't take a lot of models to, you don't have a bunch of extracts to have to pick up, so you can kind of bully it much easier. You can bully it with maybe 1 or 2 models, right?
You can. If you go tall, your opponent gets final act. So, if they have a good way to displace with a model, they can take the researcher, but I mean, hopefully your game plan's working and you're just like collapsing their faces.
Well, and it also there's no center steal, right? So like you have to commit a body to the middle of the table.
So, is there any viable strategy to just lean hard on the secures, and then if you've got displacement, try to keep them off the researcher? Or
if you're a scoring team and you're playing a researcher, you need to score that researcher. You cannot let your opponent pull it away from you and score the 2 points from it.
You really, if you're a secure team, you're hoping to God that you end up on scoundrels.
Yeah, you need to end up on.
You don't want to end up on your riots or your descends.
Yeah,
it's just bad.
It's
because you can't do both, and then you have to like you said, you have to take a researcher. You have to commit to it, or else they're just going to move it to one of the side D points and just collect 3 points on one of the on one spot. And what's your answer to that? You spread out to the other 3 Ds,
and they're still scoring 3 and punching you,
and you're spread, and then they have an opportunity just to like knock off a guy off one of your Ds, and now they're up 4-2. Like it doesn't work.
So if you're a wider team, you're almost always, you mentioned that you're almost always going to go last. And if you've got displacement opportunities, you at least can mitigate by being able to pull off at least one of their characters off the research. But you still, you it's not something you can just punt on. You have to contest it. You have, or if not score it, at least stop them from scoring.
Yes. The other thing, guaranteed displacement becomes much more valuable on researcher.
I would say you have to stop them. I think you have to get it.
Yeah, I think you do have to.
I don't think it's good enough to stop them from scoring
because it's still going to be slow.
It's so slow that they're gonna pummel you. There are models who can activate last and like steal the researcher though. Like Gwen's a good example.
Yeah.
If she's in range 4 of it, she can like double impact web and then like probably double web line.
Yeah. Ben is pretty good at it too.
Yeah.
Hulk is good. Hulk is good at Hulk is good at bullying.
It's a crisis that's made for Monkey Brain as Lizard Home.
Yeah. It's good for and another thing too is it ends up degenerating into a fight around. And if it's like 2 attrition teams and it's like Gamma Researcher, then it's just like fucking dog pile of punching each other.
A 15 threat.
Yeah.
It's just weird wheelbarrows of dice rolling.
Yeah, yeah. That's the situation where Dynamo looks fantastic.
Pyro too, I would think.
Pyro's, yeah, I mean, Pyro's fine. I mean, it's not as good as Dynamo. Definitely not as good as Dynamo.
If you end up attrition versus attrition on 15 though, you can't really go wide. Like there's not a good wide team at 15 of attrition, so it's gonna favor the tall attrition team. So taking someone like Pyro is okay-ish, but I'm trying to think of the team where you can go 3 wide with Pyro, because if you're going 4 wide, you're losing your best model against a 3 wide team. So I don't know. I guess you could go like Mags, Pyro, Hulk, or something like that in Brotherhood at 15. That would be like a good Brotherhood build. But yeah, like if it's attrition, you definitely want to be going 3 wide at 15. If you go 4 wide, you're probably gonna lose. Like unless you can run away with the score.
Yep.
But at 15, it's a lot easier to table your opponent at 15 if you're playing attrition versus attrition, because it's just a powder keg.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts on either researcher or, well, let's do first. Any final thoughts on researcher?
Something to be aware of is that if you are contesting those back points, if you're within 1, you are contesting those. So anything that affects contesting those back points, like Nebula's rerolls or
Shadowland Daredevil,
Hellfire's
Hellfire's leadership, or I mean, like anything where you're contesting. So be cognizant of like maybe I don't want to stand. Like don't stand next to that thing if you don't have to, right? Like there's no reason to.
Well, but there might be times where you want to.
Unless you're on the D.
Yeah, unless you're on a D, unless you have to.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else on Researcher?
Nope, love it. It's my favorite.
It's one of my favorites too. I would say that the Researcher is played enough where I think that every roster you should have a plan for what to do on 15 Researcher.
You definitely need it.
Yeah, I think you have a plan for it.
I mean, the Researcher's so ubiquitous at this point that you definitely. I mean, I don't even know if you can have a plan. You're hoping to dodge, and like if you land on it, then you're like grabbing your nuts and you're just praying that something happens.
Yeah,
the dice gods shine on you brightly because you're gonna need it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on extracts as a whole? We've gone over them all, kind of given some details and some things to think about on each one. Any kind of closing thoughts on things people should be thinking about with regards to extracts?
I guess we could merge the two together, right? Extracts and secures, like to have the conversation of like just being aware of like placement of objectives and I'm trying to think.
I think you just run Researcher in every list you have and make all the scenario players mad.
Yeah.
Just do it. I want to see more complaining on the forums about it.
Yeah, me too. Like, do it. I love the.
Don't ban it. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's fun. Anybody that hates it just needs to stop bitching.
Yeah.
I have my own thoughts on how to fix Researcher, but we're 2 hours in. We probably don't need to be going into that at this point.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that's like. Just remember that like threat on Crisis is relevant, but you're not always gonna get to pick it, so sometimes it doesn't matter. Just have a plan for what you've got.
That's really more kind of a list building thing. Where you just
Yeah.
need to make sure that you've got a good plan at every threat level of
Like
who you're going to roll out.
Well, like don't bring like if you're gonna bring a 17 threat Crisis, have a plan for 17 threat, right? Like just don't be like, oh, I've got this, I'm taking Fisk, but I don't have a good plan at 16. Like,
wait, you're telling me that I should have an odd number model in my list for 17 threats?
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
I play a point down. What are you guys doing?
Play a point down.
All right. Well, thanks for staying with us this long, webheads. You can support us in a number of different ways. You can follow us on all of the social medias, Facebook, Twitter.com, Threads, Instagram, everything. You can find us at Witty Bantercast. You can email us at wittybantercast@gmail.com. And then the two best ways to support us is leave us a rating and a review on whatever your podcast catcher of choice is. That really does make a difference in terms of people being able to find us and more people being able to come into the neighborhood. And then come to our Patreon. Join us at patreon.com/wittybantercast. For $1 a month, you get an entry into the monthly giveaways. You get priority dojoing of rosters, priority answering of questions. You get a whole bunch of other stuff that if it wasn't 4 a.m, I'd remember. And then at $5 a month, you get 2 entries as well. So plenty of ways. We really appreciate the support. We're still pretty new at this. We're still kind of trying to figure this out, but we really appreciate all the feedback and all the support we've got. So until next time, webheads, be good.